If people are not listening to you, stop talking to them. That is the best piece of advice that I can give you. And if you stop talking to people who aren't listening to you and start watching them instead, they will tell you what they're up to. But so if you have things to say them, but you find people that will listen, talk to them. The ones who aren't listening, pull back. Because you're devaluing what you have to say by offering it to an audience that does nothing but reject it. And that's a good guideline to life in general. So pull back.
The eagle spreads its wings as something to behold. It was built to soar and fly. It was built to withstand storms, so that when the storm comes and other birds run for shelter, the eagle runs into the storm and uses the storm to lift it up so that it can fly above the storm. You know you're an eagle when you ran into a storm that you thought was going to kill you, and instead of it killing you, it lifted you higher than you've ever been lifted before. It's a sure sign you're an eagle. Can you hear me tonight? What you need is another eagle with wings and dreams and visions and concepts, who's not jealous of you, who's not intimidated by you, who's not fighting you. You know that it's an eagle when they're not jealous of you. You know it's another eagle when they can pray for you and help you to get to the next level. It's only the chickens that are down on the ground talking about everybody. So don't be frustrated when you see the chickens flapping up and falling down, because at this stage in your life, it's time for you to be synergistic with other eagles.
When you're an eagle, you're meant to rise up. We don't rise up when everything's going well. We rise up regardless. You're trained to rise up on your worst day. That's who you are. In the worst of circumstances. No place for whining, complaining, being anxious, being negative. It's totally unnecessary.
Eagles live on another level. Eagles think on another level. Eagles dream on another level. Eagles function on another level. If you had somebody reject you, leave you, stop crying about it. It was just a chicken.
All your circumstances may say you'll never fly. You don't have the training, the experience. Thoughts will tell you you'll always be grounded. No, get ready. Your wings are coming. Where you are is not permanent. God did not create you to crawl, to go through life lonely, struggling. He created you to soar, to take new ground, to go further than you thought possible. Now quit being discouraged by what you see. What you see is subject to change. You don't know what God is up to. You don't know what He's doing behind the scenes.
No one can live beyond the limits of their belief. So if you want to live beyond what you're living now, you have to change your belief system. The secret to anyone rising is what happens in their belief system. Your life is what you think it should be. That's exactly what you are right now. You are what you thought you should be. And if you don't like who you are, you got to change what you think you should be. That's how leaders are born.
When a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, gets its wings, it doesn't just have the ability to crawl faster, just be better at what it could already do. It comes into a whole new dimension, from crawling to flying. When you get your wings, you're not going to just be better at what you can do right now. God is going to catapult you into a new dimension, into favor that you haven't seen. Things are going to happen sooner than you thought. Should have taken you a lifetime to pay your house off, but you did it in a fraction of the time. What happened? You went from crawling to flying. You got your wings. You're going to discover gifts, talents, creativity that you didn't know you had. Where you think, where did this come from? You got your wings. That's God taking you places that you could never go on your own.
You know, courage mounts up, and then sometimes we have the doubts that creep in, and we reach a little deeper to find that courage that overcomes our doubts and our fears. So I would probably debate a little bit with Napoleon on this unwavering courage. because sometimes courage does waver. But as long as it stays, as long as in the end, there it is to serve you, the courage to do what you didn't think you could do, the courage to step into territory that might be a little unfamiliar, the courage to talk to somebody you don't know, the courage to attempt conducting a meeting, the courage to give your first testimonial, the courage to solve problems you couldn't solve before, that kind of courage. The courage to stand up when it's sort of dark in your corner, the courage to do it when it isn't going your way, seemingly. The courage to try to have a good day in the midst of a bad day. That kind of courage. Wavering a little at times, yes, because we all have doubts that attack us. We all have small fears that creep in. That is the nature of life. But that's what faith is all about. That's what courage is all about. To serve us when our doubts will not serve us well. Faith to overcome fear, and courage to overcome our doubts.
Your leadership development is determined by, number one, your perception of who you are. Number two, by why you think you exist. And number three, your sense of significance. I am giving you my secret to life right here. You got to first change your perception of who you are. And that starts with a belief system. Secondly, you must change your perception of why you think you exist. And number three, your sense of significance. No matter where you are right now, it doesn't matter. I don't care what situation you're in now, where you're working, or what situation you're in. If you get these three things to come alive in this session, when I see you again, you'll have a story to tell.
If you're a person where all your friends come to you with their problem, that's because they see something in you. You're more balanced and stable. But you got to remember this old saying. If you're the smartest person in your group, you need a new group. It ain't nothing bad. You just got to upgrade people in your life. You cannot be the go-to person in the group. So, just upgrade your friends. Don't worry about it. You have a gift. You solve problems all the time. People pay for in this country, they pay for expertise in this country. The moment you're an expert at something in America, you can make $1 million. All you got to do is be an expert at one thing.
Because we all have this warfare going on. It's going on in the world. Warfare between liberty and tyranny. In our own body, the warfare between health and illness. The struggle is on. The struggle between light and darkness. The struggle between good and evil. I call it opposites in conflict. And as soon as you're born into the world, as soon as you find yourself and discover yourself on this spinning planet headed somewhere, you know that this exists. To be a civilized society, we must drive the dark side of our nature into a small corner and let the positive side flourish. Early, we must learn to exercise self-control. Power is a wonderful thing, but it must be exercised properly. It must be exercised to benefit, not to destruction, so that you can become the best example. The example of having your temper well managed, to having that dark side of your nature under control. The best example of choosing wise words and not being careless, that kind of control. Control of your appetite, control of your desires, so that they fit into the positive side of life and not the negative side. Self-control, very important. Now here's the next three. Willingness to assume full responsibility. All of us have been taught that, to take full, 100% responsibility. What happened to me might not have been my responsibility, but what I do about it is my full responsibility. If a hailstorm destroys the farmer's crop, he wasn't responsible for that. But his responsibility now begins when the hailstorm is over, when he asks the question of himself, what should I do now? Now that this catastrophe is over, now that the damage is done, now what should I do about it? And a philosophy I've taught all these years, it's not what happens to you that determines your future. It's what you do about what happens that determines your future. And this is a major part of it, accepting full responsibility. Also, you've got to be responsible for your future. Nobody's going to fix it. No one else is going to design it. No one else is going to come along and say, hey, I will make sure it all works well for you. You've got to take all the input, you've got to take all the testimonials, all the teaching, all the training, all the influence. Then you've got to have the responsibility of designing your life. You can design a life of prosperity, or you can design a life just to coast and get by. The responsibility belongs to you.
Discover that you are important to the human race, you are important to the world, you are important to your universe. You can never fully carry out the mandate of leadership if you don't have the mentality of leadership. It's about mentality. As a matter of fact, integrating attitude and aptitude and altitude produces leadership. That's a lot of ops there. First of all, your attitude got to be right. Then you must marry that to attributes. That means gifts you were born with. Then you got to marry that to aptitude. That means now you got to educate and train those gifts. That's why you read, study, and go to school, for your aptitude to be increased. And then your altitude means you got to change the level of associations you are in.
Here's the key to the good life. Learn to put everything you've got into everything you do. Whatever you are doing, pour it on. It will quickly open up into opportunity or quickly disclose to you that you ought to be doing something else. Here's the next attitude disease: indecision, mental paralysis. The guy can't make up his mind and it becomes a disease. Pretty soon he knows he's got it. A life full of adventure is a life full of many decisions. The ones that turn out to be wrong give you better experience to make better decisions. So don't see how many decisions you can get out of, see how many you can get into. That's where the adventure is. So shake off this disease, indecision. The next one is doubt. And one of the worst is self-doubt. There are many, but that's one of the worst. The guy doubts himself, doubts if he can do that well, doubts if he can make that much, doubts if he can accomplish all that. A chronic, excellent self-doubter. You can imagine what damage that does to your future. So here's the key. Turn this coin over and become a believer. And there's many things to believe in. One of the majors is yourself. The understanding of self-worth is the beginning of progress.
Sometimes it's so easy to focus on how we lost during the day. Sometimes it's so easy to focus on, here's all the things that I did wrong for myself. A lot of us do that a lot. We beat ourselves up. We're like, hey, we didn't eat right today. It's a loss for the day. Hey, I didn't work out. It's a loss for the day. Hey, I didn't study today. It's a loss for the day. And I think so many times we beat ourselves up for all of our shortcomings when we really need to be focusing on what we did right. For a lot of us out there, we all have big goals and we're chasing after greatness in our life. And it's like, hey, in order for me to make change in my life, it's this big, overwhelming obstacle. And we're like, hey, I'm here, I need to get to here, and I want to make all that jump at once. When in truth, your success is not one big jump. It's actually a bunch of small, consistent steps. You continuing to show up for yourself.
My mother said, Leslie, you run around with 9 broke people, I guarantee you, you'll be caught number 10. Well, come to find out, Mama was right. She only had a third grade education. But the studies indicate that you earn within $2,000 to $3,000 of your closest friends. So poverty and living a mediocre life is communicated mind to mind. And so your relationships can hold you down or they can lift you up. I teach people to practice the principle of OQP, only quality people. If you're the smartest one in your group, you need to get a new group.
Your perception of who you are, you've got to change it. And most of our perceptions are other people's concepts of us, and therefore we don't have self-concept, we got other concept. What is your perception of who you are? And the second one, why do you think you exist? You got to discover that you were born for something. Some reason, there's some purpose for your life. If you don't discover that, you'll always have a job, and we'll bury you in an average grave with an average tombstone.
Then he said, a leader must have a keen sense of justice. How very true. Justice we become familiar with, even when we're small. When certain things that happened or were done to us that something told us that wasn't right. Someone did us wrong. We have that sense of right and wrong, and it starts very early. Then we have to have that sense of utilizing what's right and what's wrong so that we develop this sense of justice, this sense of being fair, this sense of being on the positive side, on the right side. To minimize a person's mistakes, they need to have this sense of justice. It's been a catastrophe in the last 6,000 years. The governments that resorted to power instead of democracy, that resorted to intimidation instead of freedom. And we all know the terrible toll that that takes. But it takes a toll not only politically in a country or politically around the world, but it takes a toll even in enterprise. It takes a toll in school if a teacher is unfair. It takes a toll in working on a team where someone is unfair or where the leadership is not fair in the administration of justice. So this is true. A keen sense of justice and what's fair and what's right. Part of this we have to learn as we go. You know, you don't have it all the first year. You haven't got it all the second year, the third year. After all the years that I've, been around, both as a human being and as a business person, we're still, even at these years, trying to decide what's best, what's fair, what's right, to give balance to our life and to build on a firm foundation for the future. So I agree with Napoleon. Good idea. A sense of justice. Here's another one, he said. Definiteness of decision. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. If you don't decide, the opportunity could slip away. If you don't decide what you're going to do today, the day could get away and you're not very effective. Is it possible to finish the day before you start it? And the answer is yes. If you don't finish it to the best of your ability, have some idea, some good plan, sure enough, the day escapes. And in the morning you say, let's see, what should I do now? In the afternoon you say, hey, time's getting away from me, what should I do now? And now most of the day is lost. Most of the day escapes not being utilized and doesn't work for you simply because you didn't make those decisions early, at the early part of the day. The decisions we make in the early part of our life sometimes last for a lifetime. If you neglect them and don't make them, sure enough, the time passes. And the opportunity sometimes is diminished, and sometimes you spend a lot of time now catching up simply because you didn't make those early decisions. So it's the decisions at the first of the day, it's the decisions at the early part of the month, it's the decisions at the early part of the year that greatly determines what kind of year you're going to have. The decisions you make in the early days of your marriage, sometimes those are the decisions that affect the marriage for a lifetime. The decisions you make at the first chance you see opportunity, those decisions, what you're going to do with it, how far you're going to take it, what it's going to be meaning to you in the years to come. Those early decisions are vitally important. Then we need decisions to correct poor decisions, to overcome our mistakes. It's possible, of course, for all of us to make unwise decisions. And at the end of 1 year, at the end of 1 week, 1 month, or at the end of a few years, we say, that decision cost me too much. Cost me a lot of time, cost me a lot of money, cost me maybe a good relationship, cost me a chance to be productive. But as long as you're alive, there's still a chance to use new decision power to correct the mistakes of decisions that were bad in the past. All of us have the opportunity to do that, but I think Napoleon was right here too. You got to be definite in making decisions so that the opportunity doesn't pass you by. Take advantage. Here's the next one. Napoleon Hill said, a good leader has definite plans. How important that is. Don't let this momentum pass you by. Don't let this momentum go uncashed in on. Don't let it be like a lost cause for you. And maybe you've, because of the lack of plans, have lost a month or two, or you've lost a week or two, or maybe you've lost a year, and you were 10% effective instead of 100%. Now's the time to change all that and start making some plans. You got to have some plans for your family, right? You got to take your family along. Don't leave them out. One of the challenges all of us have in making our plans is how to balance everything, to make sure that we don't regret at the end of the year, I spent too much time on that. I spent too much money. And then if you have, say, how can I not do that again? And construct some better plans so that you won't have any regrets at the end of a year to come, 5 years to come, 3, 4, 5 years to come. Definite plans. Plans for the use of your money so that you find yourself secure regardless of what happens. I agree with Napoleon here. You got to have good plans. One more on plans, and that is the plan for your personal development. The plan to be better this year than last year. The plan to take the classes, attend the workshops, do everything you possibly can to show personal progress. Not just financial progress. Not just the progress of having one more car or one more home, but the progress of personality, the progress of communication skills, the progress in how to deal with people, progress in using your influence so that it multiplies its power by 5 by 10 versus what it used to be. You need those kind of plans. A plan for personal growth, personal development, a plan to be all that you can possibly be in the years to come as you develop in your life business and your family business, all of that. Got to have good plans. Next, Napoleon Hill had a good saying. It was something my father had and passed it on to me as a good philosophy. And here's what he said. A good leader has the habit of doing more than what he gets paid for. What an incredible philosophy this is. The habit of doing more than you get paid for. It's what we call the service that you put out like seeds in the ground that doesn't bring the harvest immediately, but the harvest is yet to come. It's called like putting out the capital in capitalism. Doing more than you get paid for means that you're getting ready for the next move up. Because if you do more than you get paid for, you've made an investment. The average person might think if I do more than the company requires, then they're ripping me off. I'm not getting paid for that extra time, that extra attention. But you must not view it that way. You must say, I'm getting there a little earlier, staying a little later, as an investment in my own personal future. Because I want that kind of reputation. I want that kind of philosophy to work in my life. Do more than you get paid for. So, what you don't get paid for, don't worry about that. Just render the service with the vision of the future that it'll come back multiplied if you have this kind of habit, this kind of philosophy. Next, Napoleon Hill talks about personality. You need a pleasing personality. There's many parts to your personality. One is your working personality. The kind of behavior, the kind of attitude that you need, especially in the public. Some things you can kind of get by with being a little careless, maybe in private, but in public, where it counts so much in your paycheck, it counts so much in building your business for the future, your own personality. But here's what you also must remember. You develop your personality in private so that it serves you well in the public. Sometimes we get the mistaken idea, I can be careless with just these few and be more careful when I have 1,000. But see, that doesn't work that way. Careless with a few, sure enough, that will creep into your presentation for 1,000 people. The influence you have one-on-one, that's what really counts. You say, well, I'm only talking to 2 people, it doesn't matter much. That's when it really matters. Because if you'll practice well there, using your personality, using your influence, to get someone's attention, to get them to listen, to get them to participate, the kind of personality that someone says, I'd like to be around this person. They're unusual, not like the average person I meet on my everyday experience. That kind of personality. But you've got to practice it behind the scenes. You've got to practice it one-on-one. And if you're effective one-on-one, 1-on-3, 1-on-5, I promise you, that will get you ready to now perform with the kind of personality, the kind of charisma that wins people when you're in front of 500 people, 1,000 people, 5,000. So this is a good point, working on your personality. Next, Napoleon Hill said a leader needs sympathy and understanding. We have to develop that early in our lives. All of our lives, we have to look at those that are less fortunate than we are. Those who need a helping hand, and especially now we learn to look at those who need an opportunity, those who need a change in their health, those who need a change in their life and in their lifestyle. That kind of leadership quality is so powerful. That kind of understanding. Now here's the last one. Napoleon Hill said, a major attribute of leadership is vision. Vision is in many parts. One, a vision for your own course to follow. A vision for you, for yourself. A vision for your financial future. A vision for your health. A vision for your wealth. A vision for you to latch onto and make something out of. A vision for your family. Because vision must now lift others as well as ourselves. Guess what our family is counting on? That we'll be able to see things that at first they cannot see. That we'll be able to look further into the future than perhaps they will be able to look. The same is true with your organization, the people that are around you. They're counting on your vision. Perhaps you've been there a little longer than they have. Maybe you've been there a lot longer than they have. And they will look to you to help them see things that they can't see in the beginning. And if you will do that, develop that attribute of leadership, I'm telling you, you'll have such a dramatic effect on your organization, it will be unbelievable. A vision for yourself, a vision for your family, a vision for your organization, a vision for the people that you're close to.